Greetings and salutations, and welcome to episode 210 of Ref the District. I'm Nathan. That's the Stoner. And then over there, that's Trev here for Ref the District. New look for our 4-year anniversary. That's right. Friday will mark 4 years that Ref the District has been active in the game, as you might be able to tell from the 210 flagship episodes. Last year, we brought you 252 videos worth of content. We'll see what we've got on the docket for you this season with our Washington Commanders. Of course, we do stream live every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern here on YouTube and Facebook. We appreciate you jumping in and joining the conversation live. Just make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and of course, share it with your friends so that they can join us as well, as we like to share your live comments. And we'll get to your comments after the fact as well. Don't forget to leave us a rating and review, though, if you listen to us on your favorite audio platform, because you can find us there as well. And of course, we are sponsored by Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting online platform. You can bet on NFL action, NHL action, NBA action, UFC, you name it. You got an in-game live betting right at your fingertips with the world's most trusted source. Bet Online, the game starts here. Few people already in here already. We got Locked On Law, first string. Hey, Pick, how's it going? Dominique, TJ, JG in the house here as well. Today's show, we're going to cool down with those dates that you need to remember, the ones that need to be put into the calendar for this offseason. Washington's offseason is now. And we're going to be talking a lot about that starting next week. But in today's game, we will be talking about this past season. We're going to rate it. I've got a few different categories for the gents to rate it. And originally it was pitched as a rate it from a 0 to 10 type thing, but we got somebody special underneath center. So we're going to go with 5, rating it from 0 to 5, 5 being the best because of course. And then here in the warm-up, we'll be talking about that NFC Championship game. What went right? What went wrong? Stoner has a video out on our channel, if you haven't already seen it, about the 5 things that went wrong or why Washington lost that game. We'll be talking a little bit about that. But of course, because I'm a positive Perry, I like to bring out the things that went right as well. So that is what we'll be talking about here. The other Nathan is in the chat here now as well. Mike joining us. So is Terrell. Thank you for enjoying our content and jumping out here. Let's get right into it, guys. This Philadelphia game sucked for the most part. For the most part. There was some hope there, though, Trev, right? I mean, at one point, it was 14-12. You know, at one point, we were only down 13, and we were driving. You know, you had the Terry McLaurin touchdown. You had their punt that they stepped into the end zone, which gave it a touchback. You had the fake punt go for a first down. It seemed like the magic was still with Washington. We talked about them being a team of destiny, and it felt like Washington was going to keep it close, and Washington had a chance, Trev. The wheels fell off, but I mean, there were some things that were in this game that were somewhat positive.
Sorry, I'll answer in a second, but there's a light show going on right now.
I know. Should I give a flash warning here? As
seriously,
there's a rave now.
There's nothing going on.
There's something going on. Somebody's there. Somebody's there, whether you see him or not. Somebody is there.
I'm having a computer meltdown. I'm having issues, so now I'm in a different place. If you're a usual viewer of our show, you can see that I'm not in my usual spot. So now I'm using a MacBook or an iMac, and just weird things are happening. I don't know what to tell you. The lights itself are not changing. There's no flashing or anything. It's something about the computer making adjustments. So I don't know. So,
okay.
Anyway, get back to it, Trev. What Nathan asked.
So, yeah, it was 34-23 in the third quarter, and I was like, okay, offense is pretty much doing all of the work right now to keep us in it. What went wrong was the defense, man. We just couldn't stop a running nose. We couldn't stop anything. JD5 in the offense, and Ertz, kept them in this game. But then not only was the defense not good, it was self-sabotage, the turnovers. We had 3 turnovers, 3 fumbles, and I really don't want to count the interception because that was kind of like garbage time interception. But it's still a turnover, so 4 turnovers altogether. But we had some self-inflicting wounds at crucial times, right when De'Ami Brown was trying to dance for an easy first down and he gets stripped. Then you got Austin Eckler, who all season long we've seen that man get knocked down, get right back up, and keep going for more yards. But this time he was just too aloof with it. Turn the ball over there. And then I can't remember the third fumble that happened, but I know
that was the McNichols on the kickoff.
Yeah.
Kickoff, yes. Another crucial point, right, where we, I don't know, it was 14.
Washington made it 14-12. They failed to get the 2-point conversion, and things felt like they were doing good. Defense gives up a touchdown. Okay, so now it's 21-12. You're like, it's fine. Jaden Daniels is going to get the ball. They're going to drive this one down, and it'll be a 17-21 game or an 18-21 game or 18-21 game, whatever it was going to be close, and things were going to be fine. And then Jerry McNichols fumbles on the kickoff. Philadelphia scores again, and the next time that he gets to touch the ball, it's 27-12.
Yeah, and it really came at a bad time too, right? Because as it was 14-12, and then you give it back to Philly, and then they, of course, they move it right down the field, as you said, Nathan. But they do that right after the 2-minute warning. They score, and they don't get their 2-point conversion, so it's only 20-12 rather than 21 or 22-12, right? So you're feeling okay. Jane Daniels has done this a million times. He's going to take it with the 2-minute drill. There was like a minute 43, something like that, left on the clock, and they're going to go down and they're going to bleed out the clock and they're going to score a touchdown. And you're going to go into halftime like 20-19 or 20-20 or 20-18, whatever. You felt good that you were going to be there, right within a 1 score. And then he, as you said, Jeremy McNichols fumbles that ball. And Philadelphia gets it. Obviously, they go right in and bleed most of the clock, too, because Washington's trying to use their timeouts to try and save some clock. And they save just enough for Jaden Daniels to go down and kick a field goal. He doesn't kick the field goal, but you know what I mean, to lead the drive down. But it was like that. It was like that the whole game. It was when the team started to build momentum, somebody fumbled the ball and just absolutely crushed any sort of momentum that Washington was trying to get. And you do have to give credit to Philadelphia for causing those fumbles. Now, the McNichols fumble wasn't really caused that much, but they were out to get the fumbles. They were out to cause the fumbles. Yeah. And you have to give them credit for doing that.
Yeah, JG here saying that as well. You got to get credit to the Eagles here. They were the ones who embodied ball is life philosophy. That was no doubt about that.
Yeah, and so it was really disappointing that it kind of every single fumble that occurred, that not only did it kill any momentum from Washington's side, but obviously the Philadelphia took every single turnover and went right down the field and scored. The defense couldn't step up and make a play. And that's complimentary football, right? You need help when your offense screws up. You need help from your defense to make a stop like that. And it's the same on the other side, right? If the defense messes up and lets a touchdown in like that in the first half, then you count on the offense to go down the field and score.
The second half, Stoner, that's a prime example on that one. Philadelphia starts off the ball. Philadelphia gets stopped.
Yeah.
Washington needed to score there.
Yeah. Yeah. And what they do, they punted it right back, right?
They punted it right back.
Yeah. I mean, you have to give Philadelphia a lot of credit. We all know this. We can't deny this. Philadelphia has a better football team. They've got somewhere 8 to 10 Pro Bowlers compared to Washington has 2 or 3. They have a better organization right now, top to bottom. They have better skill players. They have better guys in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They're a better football team. And this was one day where it absolutely showed up for Philadelphia to be able to establish their dominance on both sides of the ball. And Man, did they ever. And Washington had no answer for any of it. They kept trying, and Philadelphia was just pummeling them everywhere. Every time they turned around, they would just do something else to cause Washington to just lose momentum. It's crazy.
It was kind of the similar situation as the previous matchup between these two, only Philadelphia, they learned their lesson. They got to score off of those turnovers, 5 turnovers. Yeah. They didn't score very well off of those in that previous matchup. This time they scored a touchdown off of every single turnover. Washington did not learn from the 5 turnover game, as Pick mentioned. And it hurt, and it really hurt. Now, sticking with the positive for here, as Nathan points out, it's refreshing to know our offense can score from anywhere. The first drive was the game plan. The turnovers were not. Even on the Austin Eckler drive, the ball was being moved. Even on the De'Ami Brown drive, the fumble, the ball was being moved. There was some times Washington had a punt. Tressway was out there earning his paycheck. Maybe the last time that he will be in burgundy and gold. He's a free agent. That could be something we could be talking about this offseason. But things just weren't moving enough, right? They kicked themselves in the butt too many times. But I personally, I know that the score was awful, 55-23, just a huge butt whooping. No doubt about that. But Trev, I don't know about you, but I actually did walk away feeling like Washington still belonged there. Washington, did beat the number 1 seed to get there. They did win on the road to beat Tampa Bay as well. And for a portion of this game, Washington was in it. They mucked up, that there's no doubt about it, but they showed that they could be a team in the future if the talent discrepancy wasn't as bad. If they didn't create these, if they didn't give up the ball, I don't think that people would say Washington was a fraud. Stoner or Trev's on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm on mute. Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of positive to take away from that. That Philadelphia team was a different team than the first 2 meetings we played against them in the regular season. And they just go to show you that your division rival postseason and regular season is a whole different ballgame. But yeah, we knocked off the Detroit Lions. We beat the Tampa Bay Bucks. We didn't do in the regular season to get to where we had to go. So yeah, I walked out of there. Yeah, we did belong. We're not frauds at all. It's just we picked the wrong day to have the worst game of the season. Which I know we've had some. I think during that 3-game losing streak, there's probably one that could probably equal this loss. But if not, then this is the one that takes the cake. I think it's the one we played the worst, most at stake. It just, that's just the way the NFL is. But yeah, like Philadelphia was a different team. They knew who we were. We knew who they were. We just didn't have the firepower to stop who they had. It's not like we've never Saquon Barkley before ever. I mean, he's in New York first, and he killed us there. They were just a bad team, and now he's got help with over in Philadelphia. So it's not like he was something foreign to us. It's just they had literally a better team, better talent, better game plan, and better execution. It's not that we were frauds. We were just lucked out getting there, or we didn't deserve to be there. No, we came out, put the hard work in every day. I mean, people don't realize we did it with a bunch of different people. Okay, we'll get to that too. But like it's a bunch of different people. So I don't remember any team that gets a symbol like ours and makes a run like we did. I really don't remember that. If it did, I wasn't born yet, or I was too young to remember.
Well, this is the first time teams, I think ever that outside of maybe an expansion team that had as large of a turnover as Washington has had.
We beat teams that were built on continuity to get to the NFC Championship. Baker Mayfield's been down there for 2-3 years now. Jared Goff's been in Detroit for a while now. They were just in the same spot last year. In the playoffs, and then Philadelphia. So no, we're fine. We're not frauds. You just look out. We coming. That's what we are.
It is going to be a new year. We got lots of good off-season content, including a top 5 coming series that's going to be coming out on early in the week, I'll say. So I don't lock us in here right now on Wednesday night. Stoner, I'm going to come to you with this comment. I'm going to show this one back up here from Gus. Major positive. Frankie Louvu showed up in prime time. He doesn't only feast on weak teams. I would say, to go as far and kind of piggyback on this, as we learned in the military, favorite term, right? It's a great term. Washington does have superstars. Jaden Daniels looked good. Terry McLaurin, that touchdown run was fantastic. Luvu looking like Troy Polamalu, jumping over at the pile. He didn't time it right, but he looked good doing it. He looked good doing it. How important is it going into this offseason, Stoner, having seen these guys in the biggest game? The whole team didn't show up.
Yeah.
But these three, these are pieces. These are stars you can build around.
Yeah, there's definitely stars there. We haven't had that in quite a while. I can just remember a couple of years ago where we couldn't really talk about or decide what jersey we wanted to buy because there wasn't anybody who was, one, a superstar, and two, somebody who we knew was going to be around for a while. We didn't have anybody like that. The only one was Terry McLaurin, and we had bought his jersey 3 or 4 years prior. So we were trying to talk. I think we even had a show where we talked about it. Like, whose jersey would you buy right now? And you would talk about Payne and Allen and guys like that. Oh, maybe on the offensive end, maybe Taylor Heineke, right? Guys like that. And we were like, we didn't have anybody. Now we've got some guys who are established stars, like you said. And Frankie Luvu in this game was absolutely a maniac and showed the world what he's capable of. Because a lot of people didn't really know a lot about him, right? Even when he came to Washington, we didn't know a whole lot about him. He was basically, until last year, he was a backup, a career backup, undrafted free agent for the Jets, and didn't even start for the Jets. Went to Carolina and didn't start till his last year there. And then he comes to Washington and he proves that, again, Adam Peters can look out there and he can find somebody that you never heard of and I never heard of, and who's an undrafted free agent and who has only started for 1 year, and say, this is a guy who's on the rise and he's going to come into Washington and be what we've wanted here for so long, which is a linebacker who can go sideline to sideline. And so they still got to continue to build, but Frankie Luvu was awesome. McLaurin was awesome. Jaden Daniels was awesome, but that's it. I don't know if there was anybody else that was awesome in this game.
Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz
was awesome.
Zach Ertz definitely played well. Maybe not quite a piece for Washington, but an important piece Adam Peters picked up in the offseason. In fact, that might be one of the topics we talk about here in the game. Why don't you stick with us here as we rate out of 5 how the Washington season went. Stick with us here on Ref the District. Welcome to the game here on episode 210 of Ref the District. The game here is brought to you by Don't Sleep Energy, a local DMV company that you can support and support us by heading out to don'tsleepenergy.com. Use the code DISTRICT to get yourself 10% off your entire order. Get your energy needs right there online, whether or not it's their original recipe, their sugar-free, or their energy shots, or maybe some other fantastic gear. Celebrate a local business and us by using that code DISTRICT at don'tsleepenergy.com. Don't Sleep Energy. It makes you great. And this was a great season for Washington, but we need to go and start ranking this and rating this and different aspects of this to see how Washington did as far as the season. We're going to go overall. We're going to go with certain things. We were talking about Zach Ertz, and I'm going to kind of bubble these into one whole thing. Personnel decisions is where we're going to start with. Okay. Let's rate the personnel decisions for the Washington Commanders in the 24-25 season. That's going to start all the way there with free agency, which, as a freezing cold take, it's been shared quite a bit. The guy who said that Washington had one of the worst ones, signing Wagner and Zach Ertz and a couple others in there, Eckler, saying that there were bad signings for Washington. All three played a good part. And also the draft. and some of the moves in the season, such as Marshawn Lattimore. So let's hear it from those in the chat here. Specifically, personnel decisions, but let's hear it from you two first as well. Stoner, we'll start with you on this one.
So you're saying that all the moves, so we're not separating like free agency and the draft.
You got to go all of the moves. Now you can sit there and you can tell me, free agents, I really thought he knocked that out of the park. I'd give him a 5 for that. In the draft, he did well, but maybe didn't hit on all of the early ones because we didn't see a lot of Benson in it. Coleman looked good, but is he the left tackle of the future? Johnny Newton missed some time in the beginning. Is he really the impact player you get with your first, second pick? And then Marshawn Lattimore, I hate that, so I'm going to give it, that's like a 2. So overall, 3. By the way, none of those are my actual thoughts. I'm just using that as an example. Get you going.
Okay.
Get you thinking.
Get me going on free agency. And I think we talked about this before, but it's really important. Free agency out of 5, and I don't do like 4 or 4 1/4 or 4 1/2, whatever. I get really specific. So I would give free agency about a 4.89. And here's why. If you look at every free agent signed in the offseason, and we're not even talking about the guys that were picked up along the way that were actually contributors, but they weren't special. But if you look at every single free agent, except for one, and what they did and what was asked of them, it was basically a home run, right? Because you have Austin Eckler. What did you need from him? You need a spark out of the backfield. You need him to be a guy who can do things in open space. That's exactly what he was. You knew he was going to miss some games because of injury, because that's what happens. And he did. Zach Ertz was 1,000 times better than you thought he was going to be. Right? I mean, you didn't expect a 34-year-old tight end, again, coming off a year. I don't think he played at all last year, maybe a game or two, but to give you 68 catches and 7 touchdowns, and in the NFC Championship give you 11 catches. That's crazy. And I'll go through them quickly, but Biotish was who you thought he was going to be. Marcus Mariota as a backup was exactly who you thought he was going to be, or exactly what you needed. I'm still a little iffy on left guard. I didn't think he was great, but I didn't think he was terrible. He's the best left guard we've had here in 5 years. That's not saying a whole lot. And Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler and Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner, and then you go to the draft picks. But at free agency, he hit on every single one except for Michael Davis. And that's it. And Michael Davis was a big swing and a miss because he was expected to be a starter on this team, ahead of Forbes on the outside, and he was just really bad. So that's why he doesn't get a perfect record. And then just real quickly, I'll go to the rookies. Obviously, Jaden Daniels gives this draft almost as high grade as you can, but I can't have my second rounder defensive tackle be a rotational guy. I hate that. I've been saying that for years. And you can't have your second rounder tight end be a backup where he barely gets on the field, where he gets single digit snaps. That may prove to be better down the road. We'll see. But as of right now, a guy who got like 8 catches all year, that ain't so great, right? And then you have Sanistrell, who was a stud. Luke McCaffrey he played a lot. He didn't get a whole lot of targets. And then after that, you're just hoping for things. So if I was to give the offseason acquisitions a complete grade out of 5, I would give it about a 4.73. That's what I would give. Almost to a man. Perfect. Almost. Not quite there because of Michael Davis taints it, and then a couple of the rookies, high draft picks, who didn't get enough playing time.
Well, what about the in-season acquisition? Because this is the full aspect. Yeah. You have releasing Fedarian Mathis, Jamin Davis. You have trading for Marshawn Lattimore. You have Jahan Dotson, who's going to be in the Super Bowl. That trade.
Yeah, I mean that brought you draft picks,
Yeah.
right? And that draft pick brought you
Noah Brown
Lattimore.
as another acquisition.
Yeah, I mean those are in season type things, and so I guess that does play into it.
He's player
But-
acquisition.
Yeah, but I know, but I hate to like start judging him on KJ Osborne and Rashawn Holmes. I forgot Jalen Holmes and Sheldon Day. You know, guys like that. You can't really say that they weren't good pickups because they didn't contribute or they contributed very little. That's hard to do. Some of them are just bigger names when you talk about Forbes, getting rid of Forbes and Dotson and all those guys, and then picking up Lattimore. So I try not to get into that because a lot of it is also because of situations like injuries. When John Allen gets hurt, you got to go pick up Jalen Holmes and guys like that. And so that's not necessarily part of their plan. That's just something they had to do. But overall, and Lattimore, look, we're going to talk about Lattimore quite a bit in the offseason, I think, and it's going to be a very divisive subject. But man, if you can make all those moves and you get to the NFC Championship and they're talking about Wagner and Luvu and Ertz and Jaden Daniels, and these are all guys who were not on the team last year. And so those are always big moves that really help out the team, and that's why I give them a 4.73.
All right, so 4.73 with a lot of reasoning there.
Yeah.
Trev, what did you like the reasoning? Is the rating too high? I mean, you're not a huge fan of KJ Osborne riding the bench after claiming him.
Yeah, that was just for what? Makes zero sense. We didn't even give that man I mean, he played, I think, what, 1 or 2 games?
Well, what if his name was
he suited up? Did he?
Well,
yeah, I remember him. He was number 13 out there blocking, I think.
But what if his name was Steve Ferrano, right? And he was signed off of the scrap heap, which KJ Osborne was on. And he was signed off the scrap heap, and he never played except for maybe he got a couple of snaps all year long. It wouldn't have bothered you, right? But because his name is KJ Osborne, you're like, well, if you're going to go pick up KJ Osborne, who was sitting on his couch, a la Taylor Heineke.
No, he wasn't.
Right?
He was in New
KJ Osborne
England.
wasn't sitting at home?
No, he was in New England.
He did
They
get
traded
cut.
for him?
Yeah, no.
They
cut him
and then we picked him up.
Claimed him.
He got cut. He was sitting at home with nothing to do, and they brought him in. But you wanted more from him because of his name. But
also because he was a starter in the league at one point in Minnesota next to Justin Jefferson, and then he went to New England and had a bad time. I'm just saying, if we can claim an injury-prone Noah Brown as our number 2, why couldn't we give KJ Osborne, who I think is probably a better receiver than Noah Brown, any reps or any targets or any chances? Like, why'd you even go get that man when Noah Brown went down if you weren't even going to use him? That makes zero sense. They didn't need him. Then why claim him?
You needed a wide receiver.
You need some talent.
No, you did.
A wide receiver. You need a wide receiver.
He didn't play.
So either KJ Osborne, go get KJ Osborne, or go get Steve Ferrano. Go get wide receiver.
Go get like maybe an edge rusher instead of a receiver, because if we need a receiver so bad and we went and got KJ, why didn't we play said receiver in KJ? Him on the bench is the same thing as us not signing him. So why did we even waste that move?
Right, but that's you're kind of
who did you release for him though? That
exactly.
To me,
who did you let go for that?
I don't mind picking him up, or even using the claim for him, anything like that, because it's just like, did they really give up anything for him? They used the claim. That it's not fantasy football where you use the claim and you go to the back of the line. You stay where you're at, which Washington, finishing with the 6th best record, meant they were pretty up there anyways in the claim. And then who did they release? Does anyone remember?
No, I think it was off of the Noah Brown.
Dude. It was like
or it was off the Noah Brown injury.
Yeah,
and it was to replace Noah Brown. So, and they have like, we need to have for whether practice or whatever, but we need to have 8 receivers, 6 on the active squad and 2 on the practice squad. I'm just throwing out an arbitrary number. That's not the exact number. So normally, if a wide receiver goes down, then they're going to sign a wide receiver to replace him. And it doesn't have to be a guy who replaces him in the starting lineup. It just has to be a guy who's there to fill that roster spot. And if he happens to be a good player and can contribute, then great. But if not, you never had him to begin with, and you never had any thoughts of him
Could
coming
be
in.
Bryson Tremaine.
Yeah, I mean, Bryson Tremaine got playing time.
Yeah.
Down towards the end. I think he even got some playoff playing time as well. So I think it's just the name. It muddles your brain, and like because his name's KJ Osborne, he should have that makes it a bad move if he never played.
I mean, I just thought he was better than Bryce Tremaine, and maybe
maybe he didn't know the playbook as
Chris
well.
Moore,
I mean, there's
know.
probably half a dozen reasons why he.
But anyways, back to my rating overall with the free agents in the draft. I'm going to push back on the Johnny Newton thing that you said, Stoner, because about being rotational. I think he slid into that role because of his injury in the beginning of the year, and John Allen and Deron Payne were playing quote unquote good ball. So he had to be a rotational guy. But he is going in the future. I don't think he will be rotational. I think he will be a solidified starter because we're going to lose one, probably John Allen, probably, if not somebody else. But he's going to do a lot of work over the summer to get in that role. So I think that was a good move because we do need that help coming up because those guys are getting older. Ben Sinnott, maybe he doesn't know the playbook that well. Maybe, the plan is to use him next year. We already had Zach Ertz and John Bates, and he was number 3 coming in anyway. So I didn't look for him I was kind of looking for him to get more action than what he got, but a lot of times he was in there just being an extra blocker and he had that one touchdown catch, which I thought was pretty cool. But and then I think in the preseason that catch and run too. So I look for more of him in the future. Brandon Coleman, draft pick. I think he did just about as good as you could expect a 3rd round left tackle to do. I think he showed us, yes, he can be our LT going in the future, and he also showed us that he could be a backup of our LT going in the future. So I thought he did exactly what a 3rd round left tackle would do. You nailed it with Mikey Sanders-Drill. You nailed it with obviously Jaden Daniels. Overall, the draft, Luke McCaffrey, that's another Ben Sinnott thing. I think he was out there more, but maybe he just needs more rapport with Jaden Daniels rather than just
what's the funny thing about Luke McCaffrey? We're talking about Stoner's talking about the expectation based off of the names, right? If Luke McCaffrey was a 4th round pick instead of a 3rd round pick, the number 100 pick, I think people's expectations are a little bit more leveled.
Yeah.
But because he was a day 2 pick, because he was within that top 100 picks, people are expecting him to be Terry McLaurin, who was picked 70 something, right? They're expecting, greatness because he's a McCaffrey as well. He looks good on the kickoff returns. Early on, he was finding some open space and he wasn't getting the ball. Then he started seeing a little less playing time as things went along. So there's definitely something there interesting. I think Mike earlier saying that he needs to develop into wide receiver 2. If he can develop into wide receiver 3, I think that'd be
awesome.
Static,
like a nice little slot guy. That'd be sweet. And then, so I think he nailed the draft. So I'll give that a pretty much a 4.5, 4.6. Free agents, all of them except for Michael Davis, he nailed. Like you said, Stoner, he brought in Eckler to do exactly what he did, be that game pace changing back that we needed. He brought in Zach Ertz, who surprised all of us, and I think you should bring him back at least for one more year, just because.
I don't, but it's okay.
He's a big deal in the locker room. He's a big deal in the locker room and a big deal to Jaden Daniels. So 1 year wouldn't hurt. Then you go and get Bobby Wagner, who everybody thought was old. I still, to this day, cannot believe that Bobby Wagner played an entire season for the Commanders. Now, if he comes back with us next year, I don't know. We'll talk about that too. But he did his thing. He got over 100 tackles again for 13 years in a row, made the Pro Bowl, was a huge locker room leader guy for this team in that defense.
Big time.
A lot of the reason why our defense didn't break a lot but bend a lot was because of Bobby Wagner. Frankie Louvu, lightning in a bottle. He is our Troy Polamalu. You saw his timing with the snap got better as the season went on. The understanding of the defense got better with him as the season went on. I look for him to wear that green dot next year. If we lose Bobby, I don't know, but he's definitely earned that right. He is a great pickup. Noah I in the slot cornerback, I thought was You know, he was pretty good, but he wasn't anything to make you want to game plan for or, go out there and sign him to a big extension.
CB3. Does anyone really game plan for CB3?
You know what I'm saying? But some teams have good slot corners better than their outside corners and vice versa.
I would re-sign Noah.
So
Iggy, I would do it.
No,
I would.
I can't. He got to go.
I wouldn't unless he's okay with being cornerback 5 or something.
Right, yeah.
The backup slot guy.
Yeah. Michael Davis is atrocious. Michael Walker was the linebacker that we signed out of Pittsburgh, but he did a lot of special teams work, and I think he was pretty good on special teams. Nick Bellore, special teams ace. I know we gave him crap for those holding penalties that one game, and we were like, what? Special teams ace? But he turned out to be an actual special teams ace.
Yeah, awesome.
And then who else?
Long snapper.
Yeah.
Long snapper. The Ravens, love him. All the kickers were pretty good for us when healthy.
Yeah.
When healthy, they were all pretty good for us. We just got to go out and get one that
got to go get a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So free agency, another 4.6 or 7. And then, so the overall grade, I think, for all the assets that were brought in and let go, the moves that were made were pretty much 4.7, 4.8. Letting go Jamin Davis, letting go for Darian Mathis, giving these boys times and time, chances and chances and chances. And then you got people like Sheldon Day and Carl Davis outworking them in practice. They're getting called up and they're on the inactive squad. Emmanuel Forbes was never going to work out. I don't know if he'll work out anywhere, honestly. He's got a lot of work to do to be where he was in college, which is crazy, but it's a different game. And then, of course, I see a lot of – we'll get to this probably, but people are wanting Chase Young and Montez Sweat back. Nope, I'm good on that. We got rid of them before this season, but the ownership, like I said, the ownership was here. They were a part of that move. Great move. Because you go bring in Dante Fowler and Khalil Farrell, 2 journeymen, and they have better defensive end seasons than Chase Young and Montez Sweat ever had here together when they were talking about breaking the sack record. So
I think
good move.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Jeremy Chin, also another one. Great signing. He earned a payday. Fowler earned a payday. Khalil Farrell, he can go if he wants, but I know he's a Virginia native and he loves the team. But if he stays as a rotational guy, I wouldn't be mad. But I don't want him to be a starter anymore. We got to get somebody that can be a starter on that position. Opposite of Dorrance Armstrong, who I thought was a fabulous pickup. Took him a little bit, too, to get where he was in Dallas when we up against him in those years. But I think he's starting to do that now. So overall, a 4.74 Stoner.
I think Adam Peters he didn't mean to do this, but kind of looking at it, he kind of screwed himself a little bit with some of these free agents that he brought in. Because there is no way that when he brought in these free agents that he thought that this was a NFC Championship caliber.
Oh, I know. It's just going to make it really, really hard now.
Yeah.
Right, because Zach Ertz is 34 and Wagner's 32 or whatever, and Eckler is at that running back age where he's going to start breaking down, and a lot of these guys are just not guys that you put on a championship caliber team. These are guys that just kind of get you through a season until you can continue to build. So I think Zach Ertz, as great as he was, and especially for Jaden Daniels, he stunted the growth of Ben Sinnott, a guy that they really wanted to draft and really wanted him to take over that tight end 1 role and couldn't because Zach was playing so well. That Jordan McGee selection, was that 5th round? Maybe it was 4th round. I can't remember. That dude.
We didn't have a 4th round pick.
Okay, maybe I think it was 5th round then, right?
5th round.
I think that dude, I think they really wanted him to be that linebacker that Wagner is already right now, right? And it's the same thing going into this offseason.
Love McGee. They do.
Yeah, they love McGee. And I watched a lot of McGee, not during on special teams. I watched a lot of them because I believe Bobby Wagner played every single defensive snap the entire season. So I don't know how Jordan McGee's going to get on the field for that. But they stunted those guys' growth to be able to mature and learn on the field. right? So now you go into this offseason and everybody wants to bring Ertz back and Wagner back and Fowler back and maybe Eckler back. But that Ertz and Wagner decision is going to be super tough because you need Ben Sinnott. You need your 25-year-old tight end to play every down. But Zach Ertz is, when healthy, he's so good enough. He's so good that Sinnott can't play. Yes, Trev.
I don't think they went and drafted Ben Sinnott with the mindset of him becoming tight end 1 this year. One of the very first moves they made after that was Zach Ertz.
Right.
And I think they did not want to thrust 2 rookies at 2 very important positions in a recalibrating season to start day 1 together. Ben Sinnott, I don't believe, is a day 1 starter. He's raw. He's a gadget guy. He's just big and he's hard to bring down. He was making great catches in college, yes, but outside of Ben Sinnott, they didn't have anybody else to make plays. Here we did.
Preseason one where he like ran through.
Oh, yeah. So
that was great.
I think they will use him more next year, but I think they brought him in maybe thinking he would get more playing time and actually than what he did, but maybe because he didn't get the playbook fast enough or it just didn't call for him to come in at this time. Because Zach, like you said, Zach Ertz is balling. So I don't think it necessarily shredded his growth because I'm pretty sure he probably learned a lot from Zach Ertz.
How is he going to get more playing time next year if Zach Ertz is still here?
John
Bates is also free agency.
Yeah, and he could leave. And then Cliff Kingsbury got another year coming. We'll get to that too. Now he can open up his playbook even more than what he did this year and get Ben Sinnott in there. There's rumors going around saying we should go get Kyle Pitts and keep Zach Ertz so we can stretch the field with Kyle Pitts and then keep Zach Ertz as a short yardage tight end. I'm not cool with that. We got Ben Sinnott for that. So keep Zach Ertz because you need him for the locker room, the continuity with Jaden Daniels, and to teach Ben Sinnott the ways.
Yeah. So 4.73, 4.74 on these 2 ratings. I think a lot of that discussion is pretty interesting, and we'll definitely talk about who Washington will be re-signing. In fact, it's going to be a top 5 for us coming up here is who of Washington should they re-sign. I think that the expectation part is an interesting thing to talk about here because a lot of people, when we're starting this rating concept, talk about how can this not be a 5? Washington overachieved.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, a lot of people, the bet, the line was 6.5 games. Trev, the optimist, had 12 games, but he didn't even think that was real. No one thought NFC Championship game. So they're like, you have to rate it a 5. But I mean, when you look at it, every year, a team's trying to, maybe not realistically, but they're trying to win games and get to the Super Bowl, right? Washington was in a recalibration year. They specifically said it's not a rebuild year. They want to win games. They wanted to do something good. Don't think they expected to be as big as they were.
They didn't.
I mean, these signings that they did, Stoner, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, well, maybe not quite there because I don't agree with the whole not giving playing time to the young guys bit. I'm more so the expectations now for Adam Peters are 100, like a 97% hit rate.
Yeah.
Like you can't sustain that. You can't do that. Right. So we're talking about expectations, exceeding expectations this year. Next year, the expectations are every person you name Adam Peters is going to be gold. And if they're not gold, you didn't meet expectations. Oh, you guys didn't make the NFC Championship game in year 2. That's a 2. That's not a 5. And so I want to leave the expectations out of it because absolutely Washington exceeded expectations. Absolutely, with the 60% roster turnover. With guys who I very much go ahead, check the tape, was down on. I said, we don't have an edge rusher. Those guys are they're Jags.
Yeah.
I said Austin Eckler was good.
Yeah, you did. You hated him.
You guys were like, he's a stud. It's like, no, he's a plus player. I'll give you that. You guys were telling me he was a stud. Zach Ertz. You guys telling me he was a stud. I was like, this guy's like 34 years old. And they played their minds out. Adam Peters hit on pretty much every single one of his personnel decisions. Even these rookies, you see why they were drafted. And in my opinion, when I look at it from the year one rookies, is there somebody who he could have taken in that spot that is heads and shoulders above or clearly better? And maybe one of those players who we love is Mikey. You can make the argument that he should have stayed there and taken Cooper DeJean.
Yes, but
Mitchell he did get 2 picks. He got Johnny. He got the 2 picks out of it. So
yeah, he got Mikey and Sinnott.
Yeah. So you can. There's, to me, that the way I know it's a flawed way of looking at it, but it's just like, to me, it's just like when you're talking about Brandon Coleman at left tackle, he might not be the left tackle of the future. He certainly looks like he's got a spot on the line, though.
Yeah,
he looks good, and he looked decent for a rookie. In fact, as a third rounder, he was outplaying anybody outside of the top 10. So,
any lineman.
Any lineman.
You're not talking about anybody. You're just talking about
any lineman outside the top 10. Yeah. You have Johnny Newton, who flashed, who does give you some roster flexibility with the other 2 the other 2 defensive tackles. So I mean, I like the pick. I liked the Mikey pick. I liked the Ben Sinnott pick. I told people tight end takes a little bit. Talked to Logan Paulson about it. It was just like, it's not an easy one to transition. But he's going to be a fine player for Washington. Luke McCaffrey, we all love Luke, but it's going to take some time. I loved the draft. I loved the free agent signings after the fact.
Yeah.
During it, I wasn't as bad as that freezing cold take, but I gave it like a 3. I was like, you're trying to build a roster. You needed some of these guys to fill out the roster. You're doing a 60% turnover. You need those guys. So I would have given the free agency a 3. They ended up playing much better than the draft. It's a 5 out of 5. It's a 7 out of 5. We said it during the draft. We don't care about any of those other picks. I don't know how you guys are changing your mind here. The one pick that mattered,
you're right,
was pick number 2. And we said, you hit on that and you can whiff, 100% whiff on all the other picks, and it won't matter. It will not matter because you got your QB of the future. Well, they got the QB of the future. They got a pretty decent offensive lineman. They got a pretty good defensive tackle. They got a darn good cornerback and a wide receiver who at least is good on kickoff returns, and maybe a linebacker who can develop into something for Washington. Don't forget John Baptiste.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on.
He's a situational edge rusher.
He got a couple of plays.
I'm not saying he's golden. I'm saying to replace a Farrell, to replace Fowler, an aging Fowler. These guys aren't bad.
He's who are those 2 He's James Smith Williams.
He's another one of the law firms. James Smith Williams.
What was the other guy in the 7th round there?
William Bradley King.
Bradley King.
Yeah, Bradley King and Shaka Tony and.
But you know what, doesn't matter if Jean Baptiste doesn't become a.
I know, but you were hyping him up. I just wanted
Dominique Hampton. Dominique Hampton, 7th round guy.
Hampton, yeah. So it doesn't matter. The draft, 7 out of 5, 3 out of 5 for the free agencies. In-season acquisitions, we're on a wait and see with Marshawn Lattimore. I think he's going to be fine next season. I think that I'd probably give that about a 4. Overall, that's a smart move. You need it. My biggest thing about Marshawn Lattimore, we touched a little bit on this in our instant reaction, I think, because of the attitude. I wonder if he fits the attitude that Dan Quinn, Adam Peters are trying to. He fits the skills. He fits the mentality, I want to say. But the attitude's different than mentality.
Does he fit the culture? He fits
he does.
He fits the, you want dogs, right? They want tough, competitive, physical, arrive violent. He is a very physical cornerback, and not just in pass coverage, but he's good at stopping the run. He gets physical in that. But, maybe he doesn't fit into the whole culture that they're trying to build. We'll see about that. Because what he said was true, right? What he said was true, but you have to know how to handle that. You have to know how to speak to the media so that it doesn't sound like you're throwing guys under the bus, because it 100% sounded like he was throwing guys under the bus
or not taking responsibility for his own part, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
which he did later on in that. He did later, by the way.
He was
listen to the full thing.
He can't get there and say, well, because of my altercation with AJ Brown, we can't. No, he literally said what it was. We turned the ball over.
What did all the other guys say, Trev? What did Bobby Wagner say? Man, we gotta play better. I gotta be better. You have to do that. That is
people are different. You can say
right.
You can't turn the ball over.
Right. But
why can't he say that?
Is it brings scrutiny on you. And I'm trying to tell you.
What if Bobby Wagner said that? Would you say the same thing if Bobby Wagner said that?
Oh, yeah. But the thing is, Bobby Wagner would never, ever, ever say that.
I didn't have a problem with it.
He's
just telling Luvie what happened. You can't turn the ball over against that team.
Answer me this, gents. Answer me this. Does anybody know whether or not that interview was done before or after the team sat and met and they talked?
I have no idea. I have no idea when it was.
My understanding is that it happens after. So the team gets together, they get to talk. The coach Dan Quinn and everybody, says, "Hey guys, heck of a season. We didn't do it." This kind of stuff. Even if it doesn't, think about during the game, during halftime. What are the things that the coaches are probably telling the entire team? Right? They say ball is life. They talk about the turnovers. So he probably, first thing that came out of his head was just whatever the coaches had been preaching all the last 60 minutes, which is we can't turn the ball over and win this game. We got to get this ball back. So he probably defaulted to that. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a benefit of the doubt.
Thank you.
On the
throwing nobody under the bus.
I'm going to give him a benefit of the doubt.
Sorry, he did.
On the post game.
You guys love to give these guys a lot of slack, but they have to know better. Jaden said it, but Jaden's part of the offense that gave the ball away. He threw an interception. He's on the offensive side of the ball. Would you be okay with Jaden saying, "Man, we need to get stops out there"? And that's all.
I'd be fine with that because he's part of the team.
Sorry, Trev, that's not how it works. That's not how
Lamar Jackson says the same thing all the time, and nobody's calling him out about it. Yes,
he doesn't, Trev. No, he doesn't, Trev. You're taking little clips of certain guys, like with Lamar.
And you're taking one interview after losing 55-23 because he said we can't turn the ball over, and you take that as him throwing people under the bus.
Yeah, I absolutely do. I absolutely do take that as him throwing the offense under the bus and not taking responsibility. You can't say it, Trev. You can't say it. This goes back to, you know what, Trev?
It's time to stop being such a smokescreen after interview type guy. Like, you got to be real. These are human beings. You can't just be there and tiptoe around after losing 55-23 and be like, okay, how am I going to answer this question? No, he literally said we can't turn the ball over. He's not going to go out there and say, well, my altercation with AJ Brown doesn't help either. He's not going to say that. What do you want him to say? We got to play better as a team. We got to do great. I'm tired of the vanilla answer. Be real. You just allowed 55 points in the NFC Championship game in your first year being there, and you're like,
this, Trev. You're saying the reason you lost the game had nothing to do with you giving up 55 points.
Oh my gosh.
Right? It had to do with the offense turning the ball over.
That's was the story of the game. Stoner.
But he's the player. He's not an analyst.
Fine. He can do that. He can do that. He's playing defense. He's not turning the ball over.
I'm sorry, Trev.
He's not turning the ball over.
This reminds me of going back to a couple of years ago with the Chase Young debate we had about him not going to voluntary OTA.
Yo,
I'm going to mute you. You bring
No,
this up.
He's
Don't
literally
mute me.
saying you can't turn
Trev,
the ball
listen
over.
for 1 second. Listen.
Let
for
me
one
ask you
second.
this. No, hold on.
Listen
Why are
for
we
1
so
second.
on
No,
this,
you win.
guys? Let's get back to rating if we could.
Listen for 1 second, Trev, and then I'll let you ask your question, and you can ask, and you can have your
Okay.
time, right?
Lost control.
But it goes to the point
This is what happens
of
when you lose.
understanding what it means to have a culture within a locker room. And can Chase Young, for example, can he go out and try to get his bag, as he said, right? And be the only guy out of 90 players to not go? Is that going to affect wins and losses? Probably not. But it will cause friction within a locker room, within the culture of a locker room. It's the same thing. If you do something like that, it's going to cause friction. If you don't take any responsibility for what happened in the game, when you gave up 55 mother effing points and say it's the offense's fault,
Bro,
not my fault, not my brother's fault, those guys.
Our offense put the team of the Philadelphia Eagles in position to score easier because of the turnovers. So that's the story of the game. Think about it. You're playing defense. You come out and stop them.
And now we're going to go ahead and move on from this topic, and we'll get back to the rating of the season. That discussion should have been during the warm-up. That should not have been during this time here. Offseason, Marshawn Lattimore, we can get back to Marshawn Lattimore another time. Because that could be an off season on whether or not he is a part of the culture and everything. We are going to move back into what we are going to do. Stoner even got the last word. I'm not even sure why he walked away, because he's the one who got the last word there, which we can kind of actually see him reflecting off his picture there. But moving on, personnel, we're all pretty high on the personnel decisions that went through this season. Let's move on. Not all games. Let's talk about rating Washington in the division games. Washington split with Philadelphia. They split with Dallas, and they swept the Giants this year. So they went 4-2. What would you rate out of 5, 5 being the best, how Washington did with their division games?
I'm going to go with a 4 only because we split Dallas when we should have beat them too.
Shouldn't have lost that one going to Dallas. Yeah, it should have been a 5-1 situation. Sure.
Didn't think we split Philadelphia. Thought they'd beat us both times. So that's why that's up there. And we were 4-2. We beat the Giants twice, which we haven't done. I don't know how long. The Giants have had our number with a worse team for many, many years. So that was feeling good. Whether it's 7 straight field goals or 7 straight touchdowns, a win's a win. So a 4 because we split with Dallas.
Stoner, a couple people pointing out here, no Dak. Giants were real bad this year. Maybe you didn't play the Philadelphia the best. What would you rate? 4 out of 2, 4-2, 4 wins out of 6 games. That's not bad. But do you feel like that's enough to earn a higher rating than what Trev gave it as a 4?
No, I think 4 is about right, because the Dallas loss was overcome by the Philadelphia win. And I don't care if they had Kenny Pickett at quarterback, or if they had Taylor Heineke at quarterback, or I was playing quarterback. You win against a team that is in the Super Bowl, and you do it late in the game against the number 1 defense, where you go right down the field and score the winning touchdown basically at the buzzer against a number 1 defense. That offsets the Dallas loss. They should not have lost that to Dallas, obviously. So, and then you beat the Giants twice, which you're supposed to do. So I think that's really good, going 4-2 in a super tough division that got 2 teams into the playoffs. So I'll give that, I'll probably even give it a little bit higher. I give that about a 4.5. That's hard to do, man. It's hard to go 4-2 in the NFC East. That's
any division
hard.
Really. It's not an easy thing to do when you're talking about
the NFC South.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. The which even then I don't know that they actually had a team who did it. I think they would have all been 3-3 by the end. But it's hard to win those division games, which is why I wanted to separate this out from there. And for those who might have missed the question, it's how would you rate out of 5 Washington in the division games? They didn't score a touchdown against the Giants in the first game. Managed to win 21-18, right? They barely squeaked by the Giants the second game. The Giants,
they dominated the game, and
they dominated. Trav and I talked about how boring of a game it was because it was just they just were sleepwalking through a victory, which is something we're not used to as Washington fans.
Right.
We're never the team sleepwalking through a victory, but it was still a close game against the box score. When you come back and you look at it, right? When you forget all about what actually happened during the game, you forget those contexts, you look at the box score, you're going to be like, that was a close game. That was a close game. Just like the Dallas game. 2-3 years from now, we might remember, remember that crazy game against Dallas? But in the end, it's going to be, you're going to look at it, the score and not the box score. You're just going to look at the final score. You're like, yep, lost to Dallas that year. So the context, removing some of that context, Washington, 2 close games against Giants, losing against the Cowboys and splitting the Eagles. I agree that Eagles victory should offset some of this.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to go 3-5 here because going 4-2 it's what you need to do. If you want to make the postseason, you need to go 4-2 in your division. Those are the 6 games you're going to see year in and year out. People like to talk a lot about the schedule. Washington played the 4th place schedule. Washington's going to play the 2nd place schedule. So I think you've pointed this out before. Those are 3 games. That's it. Everything else is already predetermined. So it's not, that doesn't really change what you face. And part of that is because you play 6 games against these teams year in and year out. It was mentioned here. Let's see if you guys are going really quick with comments. Appreciate that. But they went 0-6 last year.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
0-6 to be 4-2. Big improvement. Big reason why Washington ended up in the playoffs. Of course, 2 of those victories coming late in the stretch there as well. Against the Eagles and then the final game against Dallas to secure the 6th seed. So yeah, 3.5 out of 5. It was a good year. I can see the improvement. Start beating a bad Giants team by more than just a field goal, by more than a few points because you let them stick around because you're just going through the motions. I mean, I think that was still when Jaden Daniels was nursing an injury too, if I recall correctly. So certainly some things in there, but pretty decent. Moving on to the next rating, coaching. Out of 5, what would we rate the coaching for the Washington Commanders in a 12-5 season, getting to the National Football Conference Championship game?
Yes. Probably a 4.5. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you got the guys like Cliff Kingsbury, the Joe Witts, but those are like the bigger names, the Brian Johnsons, the Tavita Pritchards, and then after that you got Daryl Tapp, Sharif Floyd, Ryan Kerrigan, Willie Gay, all former players in the NFL. Ryan Kerrigan was a former player for here, sack leader for the Washington franchise. And now all of a sudden you've got people wanting to poach our coaches right now. I mean, it's not a lot right now, but it could be more as the offseason goes on. But Cliff has already decided to stay here and be another OC for us for another year. He was looking to land a head coaching job this offseason. I just saw David Blau, an assistant quarterback coach, is trying to get poached away too. So I think when you have coaches in certain positions that are getting poached, I think that speaks volumes about your coaching staff. Because obviously you went 12-5, and not only that, you went to the NFC Championship game with a bunch of all-star, quote-unquote, coaches. And I keep reading about how Dan Quinn and AP have built this coaching staff for this particular reason. Like the depth of it is so deep and so beneficial that if we did lose coaches this coaching cycle, we really probably wouldn't skip that much of a beat going into next season. And then bringing in the people here, they could probably gel a little easier or whatever may have you. But 4.5, only because, like I said, we don't have too many big name coaches. I forgot about Ken Norton Jr., linebacker coach. But all these different all-star caliber type coaches coming together as one makes the coaching staff about 4.5. Not a 5 because we didn't win the Super Bowl, but 4.5 because they took us to the NFC Championship with a bunch of Jags.
Now, Stoner JG is saying you have to look at last year versus this year to grade coaching. Of course, last year,
sure.
4 wins. This year, 12 wins. A roster that we justly lambasted. We talked about how poor this roster was and overachieving. So some people saying coach of the year, it's got to be a 5 and all this other stuff. Where do you place the coaching?
Yeah, I couldn't possibly give it a higher grade than the perfect score. A 5 and beyond. I think you said it earlier, a 7 out of 5. Whatever that superlative is to make it as high a grade as you possibly can, especially as JG said, compared to last year. But man, these coaches, the way Dan Quinn came in and he decided to use everything that he learned about what he did wrong before and to bring that into this and build a culture, right? The culture starts with coaching. It's enforced or it is developed by the players in the locker room, right? But it has to be established from the coach. We can go back to certain coaches in the history of Washington, and I always think of like Spurrier. Spurrier didn't give 2 S's about what was happening throughout the team. All he cared about is his quarterback and his receivers and how soon he could get out to go play golf, things like that, right? And that builds a terrible culture, regardless of how good of a football coach you are. So Dan Quinn did that. He brought in some excellent assistants, a lot of guys with head coaching experience and just a lot of experience. And I don't think Jaden Daniels has quite the same year without Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think Frankie Louvu has quite the year without Joe Whitt Jr. and all of their positional coaches down the line. And there's a reason that Cliff Kingsbury was wanted to be interviewed by. He didn't want to. Teams wanted to interview Cliff Kingsbury for a head coaching job. Joe Whitt actually did interview for head coaching jobs. There's a reason that was happening to these guys because they are really good at what they do. And you take a jumbled roster, complete overhaul, and you come in and you get 12 wins. You get all the way to the NFC Championship. I can't speak highly enough of the entire coaching staff, top to bottom. And maybe a little shout out to a guy who I don't think has gotten enough credit for what happened this year. There were only 2 guys who were kept from the previous regime, right? You remember one was
Ryan Kerrigan. Yeah.
We all know. You know who the other one was?
Pritchard.
We don't talk enough about Tavita Pritchard.
Sure.
Who we talk about David Blau, right? Who is getting poached for possibly a bigger role because he's the assistant quarterback coach. Well, the quarterback coach, the guy you always see sitting right next to Jaden Daniels on the bench, talking to him between series, that's Tavita Pritchard. And he needs to get a little credit for what Jaden Daniels did as well. And I think the best part of all of it for all these coaches is the communication because they all talk about it. How good Dan Quinn is as a communicator, number one, and how he developed that down to the coaching staff. And then you look at game day coaching. You only had a couple of times where you maybe want to complain about timeouts or whatever, but they were aggressive on both sides of the ball. They're going forward on 4th downs quite a bit. They set a record for percentage of making 4th downs. And it was just everything good. They made adjustments. You see them come out in the second half and do things differently on both sides of the ball. You can't say anything to diminish what these guys did, this coaching staff. I give it an A+, a 5 out of 5, whatever grading scale you got. Man, awesome job by this coaching staff.
And it seems that Stoner's calmed down a little bit. He still looks a little red. I'm not sure if that's a color from the camera or whatnot.
Wait till the cameras turn off.
Oh my God.
Wait till they turn off.
I'm over it. I'm over it.
For those who might have missed it, he got a little heated on the Marshawn Lattimore debate, which
But
could
because
be something
he's
for
throwing
later.
people. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Well, if you saw
I'm gonna
Chase
mute you
Young,
guys. I'm gonna mute you. I'm gonna mute you. On the coaches, I will say this: if there is something that gives me hope that Washington can continue what they've built here, there are three things that, to me, seem like they have something to build on. Okay. First is Jaden Daniels. All right. By far. Okay. Next is a personnel guy in Adam Peters, who seems to be hitting on all the right. He's not going to keep hitting, right? There's going to be misses.
he's going to have his Trey Lance.
He's gonna have things like that. You know, there's gonna be some guys. Maybe even this draft that wasn't as good. Maybe Brandon Coleman, doesn't stick around, type deal. Maybe Johnny Newton doesn't, continue flashing. We don't know, but I believe in him and his ability to find talent. Okay, but the third thing, and it's actually probably even more so than Adam Peters, honestly, is this coaching staff. I really believe in what the coaching staff is doing here in Washington. Were there some ups and downs? Yeah. Were there struggles with the offense at times? Yeah. Remember early on the season, we were talking about, they can't score when they get to the red zone. And how big of an issue is that? They ended up being one of the top 10 teams in the red zone efficiency by the end of the season. The defense, they play their hearts out for 3 quarters and then get their hearts ripped out in that fourth quarter a couple of times. So it was frustrating. But the fact that we, again, had talked about just how this roster, we've got three guys you'd classify as superstars. 3 guys, and then 1 Hall of Famer, maybe 2. Zach Ertz sneaks in eventually as a tight end, But realistically, going forward, you have Luvu, who's exciting to watch. You got Terry McLaurin, who's finally getting his flowers. Even Trev's got to admit he's a wide receiver 1 now instead of a wide receiver 2. And then Jaden Daniels. The rest of the roster is just a bunch of guys who, on many other teams, they might be the third guy. They might be a practice squad guy. And they coached that team up to play all the way to the NFC Championship game, 1 game away. And in that game, had multiple opportunities to stay in there and try to take over. Didn't happen. Philadelphia is a better team. I don't think Philadelphia is a better coached team, though.
We got a lot of comments that we got out coached, and I don't know how you determine that because there weren't any coaching snafus in that game. But I was thinking about this also, is that when I really started believing in the coaching staff, because I really liked all the hires. I didn't like Kingsbury, right? That was well known, but I loved Dan Quinn and I loved Joe Whitt Jr. coming in, right? But here's where I believed in them. When they went in game 3 was Cincinnati on the road, Monday Night Football, against a desperate Bengals team who was trying to avoid. They were 0-2 for like the 3rd straight year, right? And Joe Burrow was coming back from his hand injury, whatever. And they went into Cincinnati on a Monday night and beat Joe Burrow, who, again, at that time, they were considered a Super Bowl contender, right? And then they flew directly to Arizona. And you think all that emotions of that Monday night and that big play from Jaden to Terry to seal the game and that big win on the road. And then they got to go to Arizona on the road, short week. You get 1 less day of practice. You don't even come home. You just go straight there. And then they go and just open up a can of whoop ass on the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. And I said, whoa, this coaching staff knows what they're doing. Because we know in years past, you have a big win, you followed by a bunch of losses because everybody is so in love with what they just did. But this coaching staff had them ready to go into Arizona and win that game. So I was super impressed, and that's when I started buying in.
Commandalorian there talking about as far as coaching decisions, settling for 3 in the first drive was a bad coaching decision. And we did debate that in the IR on whether or not they should have gone for it or they have taken the points. And I think that if the game ends differently, then I think you might have an argument. But when the game was 14-12, I think you're fine with the points. It was when the game starts getting out of hand. Should you have needed to continue? I mean, you got to think they did a fake punt, which Stoner, without a camera, called that it was a fake punt.
I definitely did.
So it, they still showed some of that moxie.
Mm-hmm.
Just they wanted to put points up on board. It's probably important to see Zane Gonzalez knock one through. Make sure that you have kicking for the rest of the game because he shanked one against Detroit and he doinked one against Tampa. Now that doink got us to that divisional round, but I mean, you need some confidence builders in there. So I trust the decision on that one, even though I really do think Washington's identity was going for it on 4th, and it was a 4th and short. But
I have a question about coaching decisions and whether or not you guys like this, which is, and I'm sure this is a Dan Quinn / Larry Izzo coaching decision throughout the entire year. It was obvious that their plan on kickoffs were to keep it in the field of play and force the other team to run the ball back and not kick it out of the end zone. Do you guys like that they were doing that, or that they did that all year? Or would you rather just say, I don't want to risk it, I just want to kick it in the end zone, let them start at the 30, and we'll go from there?
No way, dude. I like kicking in the landing zone to give them a chance to return it because, like you just said, touchbacks to the 30 now. It was a 20 just like 5 years ago. They were the 25 now to the 30-yard line. So there's a chance of you having them start behind the 30 rather than automatically starting the 30 every time.
I'd have to look at their average starting, or the opponent's average starting, after a kickoff, because turnovers and stuff will change the average starting. But from memory, it always felt like Washington was stopping them before the 30, because that's something Stoner and I always kind of pay attention to in the game, where when you kick it like that, do you get the stop before the 30? Because to me, that's successful. If you don't, that's unsuccessful, right? Because what you're saying then, what Larry Izzo and company are saying is like you said, they're daring them. You've got to get to the 30. And if they challenge you, if they get there, then you failed. But more often than not, I felt like Washington was successful in that. I really felt like Washington coverage team. I thought special teams overall did a good job. So I liked that decision. There's some, some gamemanship to it, but I felt like that was pretty good. And I mean, you started seeing that it's going to be different because for each team, because I know if I'm an opposing team, I don't necessarily want to kick it to Luke McCaffrey because Luke is going to take it 3 yards out the end zone. And he looked good running the football back. There was a couple runs where I was like, I really felt he was just like one broken tackle away from springing one loose. But I don't think we really faced too many teams this past year who had, outside of Turpin in the Dallas game, who had somebody who could break it. That's probably the only game where you're like, hey, guys, let's just boot this one out of the end zone. Let's not tempt fate here.
Yeah.
But outside of that, if they don't have a guy who can take one back, I love seeing that. I love to see
awesome. Well, interestingly enough, Washington finished 8th in the NFL in terms of defensive average kick return in the league.
Sounds pretty good to me.
26.4 yard line is where they had. But also interesting is that they were the only team that gave up 2 touchdown returns or returns for touchdown. They're the only team.
And one game.
Were they both in? Oh,
they're both
yeah.
Dallas. It was the onside kick return for a touchdown plus the deep kick.
The onside kick. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I forgot about that. I was trying to think who else ran one back.
Such a fluky one. It was so fluky.
This is crazy. Man, the stupid thing won't quit resetting. There was only like 5 in the entire NFL all year, 5 kick returns, and 2 were against Washington in the same game. But still, you're right. And you include that into the average return defensively, and Washington was still 8th in the league. So I think that says a lot about the strategy. I think worked really well.
Yeah, I love the coaches. I think that it's a good thing going forward for Washington. And unfortunately, it means that we'll probably lose these coaches at some point because they'll move on to be coordinators. Hopefully not like Detroit, though, where we lose them before winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and lose all of them, including like their underlings as well. Yeah. One other thing about coaches that you might think is good about Washington is that when you have players on other teams talking about how much they love playing for your head coach, that says a lot about coaching as well. And especially when superstars do that. So I think that's a good indicator of how good the coaches are.
All right, gents. We've been going a little bit on this rating thing for a while here. So I'm going to give you a couple. We're going to do some lightning round type deal. I was going to kind of break it down by positions a little bit more, but I feel like we got to get on to the next topic here. We did spend a little bit longer on Marshawn Lattimore than I intended. Let's do lightning round. Just name off your numbers as quickly as possible. All right.
All right.
All right. Skill positions.
3.5.
Oh, I'd give it a 4.8. Jaden Daniels just brings that so high.
Okay. How about non-QB skill positions?
Oh, well,
3.5.
Yeah, now you're down to Trev's level. 3.64.
Pretty bad. Definitely the area that needs probably the most improvement. Offensive line.
3.5.
I'd probably go a little bit higher.
Maybe a 4.
But maybe Jaden Daniels kind of masks a lot of their deficiencies, but there weren't a lot of games where you're just sitting there like, man, Coleman was beaten like a drum until the NFC Championship. So I give him about close to a 4.
I'm going to go a solid 3 on the offensive line. I think we can do improvements pretty much everywhere on that line. All right, Jaden Daniels, quarterback position, 5 out of 5. I mean, too easy on that one. All right, let's go to the other side of the ball. Let's go with our defensive line.
3.
Yeah, just because of the rush stats. So yeah, I'd probably
and also the lack of pressures.
3.31.
There were some games where they were getting pressures, they just weren't getting home, and then there was those games where they just were non-existent. And when they were getting pressures, sometimes the defensive backs weren't helping them out, type deals. So it was a rough situation there.
Dante Fowler got to go.
3
anti Dante Fowler.
3.25 for me on that one. Let's go with our cornerbacks, not our safeties, our cornerbacks.
2.
Man, our corners. Yeah. It's crazy too, because if you look at the past defensive rankings in terms of how many yards they give up, they're top 5 in the league in pass.
Oh, it's also because you're getting like 7 yards a carry. So
I know people like to say that, but it doesn't correlate. If you look at that, it's not like all the teams who are bad at rushing are great at passing defense and vice versa. It doesn't correlate that. It seems like an easy excuse, but I'll say 2.84 because of Mikey Sanistro and what he brought.
Yeah, Mikey's good. I liked Noah in the slot. I think if next year we have Lattimore, Sanristil, and Iggy as your 1, 2, 3, and you kind of flesh out the back end of that, I would be okay with this, mainly because my offseason priority is beefing up the big boys and getting pass rushers, because I do feel like if you decrease the time that Noah Igbinoghene is having a run around, he's going to be just fine, right? If he doesn't have to trail a guy for 3.5, 4, 5 seconds, he's going to be more than just fine. He's going to be pretty good there. So let's go to our safeties. Jeremy Chin, Quan Martin.
Yeah. I'm not high on our safeties at all.
I'm not high on Quan Martin at all.
I'm not high.
We didn't have
on
the season
Quan,
I predicted, that's for certain. But
Percy Butler, Derek
Yeah, he can
Ford,
go too.
Jerry
He can
Chin,
go too.
Jeremy Chin. They can all go.
yeah,
I
I
like
would
Jeremy
say
Chin.
here's the thing. Jeremy Chin was only signed on a 1-year deal, so he might be walking. Probably will be walking after a pretty decent season here.
Probably.
He might
They're
be
not
looking
gonna
for a
give
good
him money.
paycheck. Percy Butler, Defoe, those guys are not. Those aren't.
Yeah.
That's not it. Quan Martin, I do feel is good. Joe Whitt Jr. agrees with me, by
Yeah.
the way, but that's a very thin room there at safety for certain. So yeah, 3-2-5 for me on that one. Could certainly be better, especially in coverage. I feel like they let us down a few different times. Linebackers, Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner, McGee. Really the end of the list there, guys. But
Michael Walker, he played a fair amount. I would put it actually pretty high just because of the smarts that Bobby Wagner brings, and he gets guys in position. Maybe that athletically they can't, especially him, that he can't. But Frankie Louvu was awesome, and both of them stayed healthy all year and played most of the snaps. And so I would give him a little bit higher, but his lack of athleticism at this point is becoming a problem. So, and was a problem, especially in that Philadelphia game. So, but I do like a 4.16.
Yeah, it wasn't quite a Bostic situation where I was screaming
at
at the TV.
Thomas Davis.
Davis. Oh my goodness. I was worried going into the season. That was what Bobby Wagner was going to be for us. Like, he's a smart player, but he's just lost a step. And I just had images of him chasing running backs and tight ends, which we got a little bit of every now and then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But we also got him stuffing the rushing lanes. And my favorite defensive thing all season long absolutely was Bobby Wagner going to the line, hearing what the QB is saying and making adjustments, and then the defense getting stopped. I loved it. I rewound and watched it over and over again because it was just we haven't seen that level of play. That cerebral play, we have not seen it.
We've seen it, just not in Washington.
Fair. It's usually somebody calling out our offense. Oh
yeah,
it's gonna be a run to the left again.
Yes,
fair enough. So it's good to see it on our side. Yeah, I think 4-5 on the linebackers. Frankie Louvu, loved him. That's definitely a jersey I think we'll probably end up getting down the road on that one. And Bobby Wagner was great for the team, both on and off the field. He is the team's Walter Payton Man of the Year award. So we'll see how he lands in that one. But good for him. Great there. Final thing. Overall season, how would you rate it out of 5?
A 5. I mean, you just gotta compare it to the past seasons. A 5. We went to the NFC Championship with a bunch of Jags, a bunch of year one guys, including coaching staff and ownership groups. So, like, a 5. We won 4 games last year with bigger names on our squad. So, a 5. We went to the NFC Championship, you guys. Like, this is the first show we've done all year without having to provide
the 6th best record in the NFL.
I mean, Jaden's setting rookie records. We won 12 games. We beat the snot out of people. We scored 40 points like 3 times this year. We were 7-2. We were offense is top 5. Defense was top 15, top 20, 25. Like, it's just, the fans are back. The uniform selection was better. The stadium's getting packed out. I mean, everything is different. The Sean Taylor Memorial is gone, and something's going to be better for that. Like, we're getting a new stadium. They changed the name of the stadium. Like, it's a 5, not just for the on the field. It's just a 5 for the whole entire year. starting with AP and DQ, getting off that plane, the commander's log, like everything.
I can't argue with any of that other than I just can't quite give it a 5 just because you didn't go all the way. But I mean, I'm talking about a 4.98 or 4.99.
Let's go 5.
To be
Right?
fair, there's a few agree with Stoner here, Trav, that if the goal is Super Bowl,
The goal was to recalibrate. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I don't know that you can give it a perfect grade if you don't win it all, or at least get there. I think even if you just get there, you can give it a 5. But I'm talking about a 4.99. Try not to read too much into it. Okay, I'm giving you that far from an absolute perfect grade.
Still not a 5.
Yeah, it's just not quite. But it's amazing. It's all those things you said.
We have this discussion, I think, every season. What constitutes as a successful season? And I think for each team, you can base it off something, and it depends on what you go into the season with, right? I think every team at the start of the season will tell you that their goal is to win the Super Bowl. There's no other goal for that. For fans, it's year one of the recalibration. For us, we're really just trying to win some games. You know, for a lot of our fans, it was seeing whether or not Jaden Daniels was the QB of the future. Well, you answered that one. Absolutely is, right? You answered probably a lot of the questions we as fans had. But if you go into the season saying that your goal is to win the Super Bowl, you didn't win the Super Bowl, you can't be a 5.
Oh,
that being said, I think my personal expectations for this team, I had them winning 9 games at most. That was me being as optimistic as I could. They smashed that. They finally won games that they were supposed to win. Mm-hmm. They beat good teams when people didn't give them enough credit that they were a good team, when we had one of us calling them a fraud, when they had a winning record.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with a 4.999999.
Oh my gosh.
That one last thing. I think Trav, honest to goodness, I think I would have given a full 5, even if they didn't beat Philadelphia to get to the Super Bowl. But if that game was closer than what it was, like if you lost in the fourth quarter on the last drive type situation, I think we'd be feeling a little bit different. Right now, I'm disappointed with how this season ended. That's crazy to me.
Me too. I know. Me too.
At the beginning of last year, because we're in 2025, at the beginning of 2024, we were going to go into the NFC Championship game for a chance to play in the Super Bowl. I would have laughed at you, but I would have taken it 10 times out of 10 times. I would have taken it. But now I'm looking at it and I'm going, we could do better. We could do better. We absolutely, Luis, are spoiled now.
Yeah.
And next year, I'm telling you, next season, everybody is going to be absolutely disappointed if Washington doesn't repeat double-digit wins. If they don't win in the playoffs, if they don't get to the NFC Championship game, people are going to be disappointed. And I'm not one of these people right now who says, I loved the season and I'm so happy we got there. I'm saying that, but I'm also adding in, I'm not done yet, which I think is exactly what our players are saying. Even Marshawn Lattimore, potentially as a team player. We don't know.
Why are you trying to trigger me?
Because we can't
right now. Who has control. I'm going to give it as close to a 5 as I can, but because I'm hungry and I want more. And we've got more here on the Ref the District. We're going to give you the dates that you need to know for the offseason. We're doing that now because we didn't want to do a whole video separate for this. We just wanted to give you the dates that you need to remember. All that's coming up here on the cool down. Stick with us. Maybe we'll talk some stadium. Maybe we'll talk about some guy pouting on a yacht out there in England as well. Welcome to the cool down. Off season officially begins now, and we've got the dates for you to remember. At least I hope one of these two gents do, because I got to my computer late and I did not pull up the dates. So if they don't have it, we're gonna vamp a little bit before we get to those dates here for you, because we do want to talk about that, because this is actually going to help us on Ref the District, also kind of help plan out our off-season moves here as we move forward and give you content. Of course, we'll always be streaming live on Wednesday here on YouTube and Facebook. Make sure you hit that like button for us if you're still sticking around and watching. If you didn't ditch us, as several people said they were going to during a certain discussion that I'm not allowed to bring up because it gets certain people upset here. But we have, of course, free agency. We have the draft. We have the June 1st deadline and stuff like that. We're going to have all good conversations there. We're going to start getting our draft stuff in there after our free agency. We'll have our top off-season priorities. That's going to be coming up next week. So you'll hear that from us on that as well. Stoner's giving me the thumbs up that I vamped enough to get to our dates. Stoner, what's the first date that's coming up?
The first big thing is on February 18th is when teams can designate their franchise or transition players. I don't know if there's anybody on Washington that they're even considering doing that, but that's kind of a big date to be concerned with.
Yeah, off the top of my head, if we want to stick and talk with this date for a second, you're right. I don't necessarily think of anybody that they'd want to franchise, especially because that costs your team a little bit more. Washington coming into free agency with a lot of cap space, you don't necessarily want to use it on a franchise tag. You probably just want to negotiate a few deals. And then you didn't say 5th-year option, right? That's a different date.
Yeah, it's a different date. This
doesn't matter because Washington doesn't have a 1st-round pick to do a 5th-round option with. They got rid of all of them.
Yeah. Who would it have been this year?
So Jamin Davis was the last one.
Oh, yeah.
So it would have been
Dotson.
Johan Dotson. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't have to worry about a 5th rounder or 5th-year option, and probably for a while, because Jaden Daniels will be the first one up for Washington, and he's probably getting extended before that 5th-year option is even a thing. So
yeah, probably. Well, that February 18th is when that opens, and then it closes on March 4th. Just so you know that part. The combine, NFL scouting combine in Indianapolis, that's always fun. That starts February 24th. So we're less than a month away from the combine already. Man, you imagine how quickly that has come upon us compared to
we got to get ready for our 40. We got all get to 40. I think I'm healthy enough I can run.
Oh, you can do a 40.
I might be able to. Last year I was going to do a gag one, didn't get around to it. And I think I might be mobile enough to do one. I'll have to get the green light from EP there. The question did come from JG here, the Senior Bowl. They're doing practices right now. That is something that's going to actually happen, I think, over the course of this weekend. It's what kind of the Pro Bowl there before the Super Bowl. Senior Bowl, it's honestly the biggest thing that you're going to see. The Senior Bowl itself isn't as important as it is this practice session right now, the stuff that's going on. Adam Peters is down there, and it's kind of similar to the combine. For us as fans, the fun thing is the numbers, right? It's the 40-yard, it's the cone drill, it's the pushes and stuff like this. For the actual staff, the people who make the decision, it's not that kind of stuff. It's not that skill stuff. It's about the interviews. It's about getting to meet these players. Mm-hmm. Likewise, the Senior Bowl itself, the exciting parts that we're seeing, even the practice sessions that you're seeing, the one-on-one drills, none of that matters.
Yeah, we don't care.
It's about how well those players are taking coaching and how well they do in those interview sessions with the thing. So we don't get to see that. So Senior Bowl, if it's your jam, it's your jam, but we're probably not going to cover it here on Ref the District because, well, one, we just had a football game this last Sunday. I don't think we're used to our off season starting so late. Normally we've got a couple weeks and, Phil, and the Senior Bowl makes sense to have its own show. But we just finished the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, not this time around. But Senior Bowl is Saturday, Pro Bowl is Sunday, or Pro Bowl games is Sunday. We don't care about that either. And then next week, of course, is the Super Bowl. We don't care about that either. So
yeah, there's a lot of people boycotting it, and I saw from our viewers in the chat. I will be going for the Chiefs. I told these two gentlemen I might go in and steal somebody's Patrick Mahomes jersey to wear for this game because I'm not hoping the Eagles get to celebrate.
March 10th. Sorry. That's a very important date. That's like the legal tampering period when you can start talking to and negotiating with free agents. And then March 12th is when the new league year starts and when you can start signing free agents, and you can also make trades and all of that. So March 12th is the big new league year, but March 10th is when they can start tampering, the old legal tampering, but you can't sign. Now, you remember who was that? McKissick that one year who agreed during the tampering period to sign with Buffalo, but then when it came time to actually sign, he signed back with Washington. So don't take it as concrete.
Until pen to paper.
Yep, pen to paper.
Pen to paper. Mike here mentioning Washington has about 30 free agents. That's shocking nice. It's absolutely on our docket to talk about who we think Washington should be re-signing. So that'll be something. And of course, if you have a top 5 that you want us to discuss, make sure you let us know either in the comment section after, during the video, after the video, or of course on one of the top 5s. Let us know what you're looking for as far as content here from Ref the District. So that's legal tampering starting March 10th. Again, these dates are coming up a lot quicker than we're used to here in Washington.
Crazy. It's crazy how close it is. Okay, so then the next thing is on the actual draft, right, is April 24, 25, 26. Where is the draft this year? Do we know? It was Detroit last year, and it was a big hit.
Green Bay?
Oh, it might be in Green Bay. That's a good question. So anyway, that is on April 24th. I did skip a few things. There's some
Lambo.
Some other things that you can do on there. I don't think it's super important. There's like right of first refusal, restricted free agents. We don't even know all that. But so the draft is April 24th through 26th. Then May 1st, just a few days after that, that's when you got to do your 5th year options. You have to declare if you are exercising 5th year options on guys. Of course, they don't have to sign those, but that's when they are declared. Rookie mini camps right after that, May 2nd through the 5th, or the 9th through the 12th, depending on where your team stands. And then you start getting into June. We all know about the June 1st post designation cuts.
Could save $18 million if you cut Lattimore.
And you can $18 million for Lattimore.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know about that, but we'll look into
that. Was what one of our viewers commented earlier, but
I don't. Maybe. I
think there might be a discrepancy there. I think he's owed $18 million. The savings might not be $18 million, but
gotcha. Let's see. And then you start getting into in July, that's when you start getting into training camps. OTAs are in June. July, you start with your OTAs. Of course, you have your rookie OTAs, your rookie mini camps, all of that. But those big dates really are, of course, the league year when that starts, and then you got the combine, and then you got the draft, and then of course you've got when workouts can start and all of those good things, and then next thing you know, everyone's showing up to training camp, and then you're starting the new season. You're getting ready to go. It'll be here before you know.
Voluntary training camp.
Yes, voluntary and mandatory. And I promise you this.
Oh,
you triggered me a little. I promise you this. 90 guys will be signed. There will be 90 guys at voluntary OTAs. There will be 90 guys, not 89.
89, but we'll see.
Jaden Daniels will be there. He's not going to be a diva and say, "I've arrived. I got to go get my
His
bag.
mom won't even let him get a
go be on
girlfriend.
Family
He'll be there.
Feud. I got to
Maybe.
go do Gatorade commercials." No, he'll
Maybe.
do that on his free time.
Maybe.
Again, no free time for young Jaden Daniels.
Voluntary.
His mama
It's
said, no free
Voluntary.
time for you. Take your Jaden Daniels wall and walk away. I'm hearing in the comments section that a young Philadelphia fan apparently fell and died. So I'll send our condolences out to them and that family and whatnot. I don't care if you're being a donkey, as mentioned in the chat. You're celebrating your team winning, and you don't need to die doing that. So unfortunate in that situation, and so yeah, moving on from that one. Sad situation. I just hope that eventually we get to celebrate going to the Super Bowl for ourselves, and hopefully our young fans are responsible and don't have anything similar happen to them.
True
of course,
that.
all those dates that Stoner listed off, like I said, we'll have different content for you here on Ref the District. We'll also be talking about things that maybe we don't plan, like stadium designs being released, or ESPN dropping an article the day before the NFC Championship game about somebody mad over in England.
Who cares?
But his former team happens to be doing good without him.
Duh.
What did you make of that article, real quick, before we close things out here today? What did you make of the article, gents? Because really, I didn't care about his feelings, to be honest, the former guy's feelings. I love Joe Gibbs even more now. Hearing that Joe Gibbs stepped in after the former guy, so I can keep avoiding that dollar. The former guy was going to 11th hour renege on the deal. Said, no, I don't want to sell it to the Hogs. I don't want to sell it to the Harris ownership group. I want to keep the team. I'm being forced to sell. I want to be a big baby. Joe Gibbs apparently came in to the rescue and said, hey, just sell the team.
Just do everybody a favor. And he was complaining about not giving a bank account, and they were going to give him $6 billion. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine saying, no, I don't want to take $6 billion to go?
Oh, it was going to be because it was going to be under $6 billion. It was going to be because he got fined. That was part of it. Was he was going to get fined, and he didn't want to pay the fine because that would make it under $6 billion. So it was actually $5.85 billion,
something like that. Yeah, it's
Grim
crazy.
Job didn't hear it, so I think we need a little bit, and because Locked On Law mentioned it, Trev, we're going to allow you to tell the story because it's a little bit of that news and notes.
For all your Commanders news and notes, it's the TNN. Here's Trev.
Specifically for Locked On Law, who said we're slipping. You don't have to be prepared for it. I just wanted to make sure we hit that for Locked On Law. But you are familiar at least with ESPN publishing a story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So tell us what you know, and Stoner and I can fill in gaps.
All right. I didn't really read the whole article because I was locked in the NFC Championship mode.
As most of us
I just
should
saw
have been.
the headlines. Apparently, the former guy said he effing hated it, seeing the success we had without him while he's on a big old yacht over there in England. So I didn't read any further past that. I just thought the timing was kind of I thought we were past that kind of stuff with this organization. But as long as Adam Schefter and the former guy are communicating, I think we'll see this again sometime. But that's all.
When we win the Super
apparently.
Bowl, he's absolutely going to hear about it, and we're going to hear from him once again.
Yeah, so that's just the gist of it. Apparently, he's throwing a temper tantrum because he's not part of the organization anymore. But he's got $6 billion in a yacht in England, and he's still mad about the team. So, whatever. But you guys can fill in whatever I didn't read.
Well, I think it was just really interesting. Some of the nuggets that were in the article
There you go.
was really the biggest thing was that he, at the 11th hour, they had an agreed upon deal. He was not willing to take the big fine for the investigation that took place, right?
Yeah.
And he was found that all these things were true. The sexual harassment, the toxic work environment, they were all true. And so they were going to charge him the $30 million, I believe it was. And the original sale was $6.15 billion. And his line was, if I don't sell it for $6 billion, I'm not going to sell it. And so it took a while to find somebody because nobody really wanted to pay $6 billion. Josh Harris didn't have $6 billion. He had to go get those other guys to help him out.
There was like 30 people in the ownership.
Yeah.
He had to get all of them to get up to that $6 billion. And so then at the last hour, when they're doing all the last minute stuff, they said you have to pay this $30 million fine. So it's going to be taken out of your profit or whatever, what we're going to send you in your bank account. Actually, what we're going to wire to your bank account. So it's going to be like $5.85 billion, something to that effect. And in the middle of the night, when Washington's new owners had everything planned for the next day, the announcement, the party, all of that, and through the middle of the night, he said, no, I'm not doing it. I was forced into all this. I'm not going to do it. And it was basically Joe Gibbs and Jason Wright who went to him and convinced him to finally, because Jason Wright, by the way, he had the bank account info.
Yeah.
But Dan Snyder was not allowing him to release it. So him and Joe Gibbs finally talked him into it, said, okay, go ahead and release it. Sent him the routing number or whatever, and he got $5.85 billion, and now he's all pissed off. Good. I hope he is all pissed off with his $5.85 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody, I don't care what reason, if they gave me $5.85 billion, I'm going to be quite happy, dude.
Yeah.
And that's just the type of person he is. It's not about doing the right thing. It's not about appeasing others. It's just all about him and his ego. And good riddance. I hope we never see him again. And we probably won't, because he's going to stay over there.
Yeah, they that was also in the article. They moved everything over to London. There's talks about whether or not he wants to buy a team, but those close to him say that he's not actually going to do it. It's just he is longing for something, and he hates that Washington is doing well in his absence. And so that just makes it all the sweeter for us. But thank you, Joe Gibbs, and thank you, Jason Wright, for helping out with that and getting it across the way. Luis mentioned part of the kind of the shenanigans that he was trying to pull off was he was trying to say that all those bad things happened because of alcohol, and that he's sobered. He's been sober, so he's a changed person. But then he acts like a petulant child because he didn't want to pay a fine and he didn't get his way. When, as Stoner mentioned, he set the bar at $6 billion because he didn't think anybody was going to come there. And tinfoil hat time, I'm pretty sure it was the NFL who went to Bezos and was trying to pressure Bezos into buying, because they knew that's a hard sell to get $6 billion for anybody, but Bezos does that. So let's see if we can't get Bezos in there. And so that's why he was in the mix there. But thankfully, the Harris ownership group came out on top, and thankfully this deal got across the point, so that way Washington's in the position, because we didn't rate the non-football factors, guys. Well, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more when the NFLPA ratings come out. But kudos to Josh Harris and the ownership group, and Jason Wright, still a part of the team, and the new president, and everybody who is working to help this team win outside the margins and improve the experience for fans off the field. Fantastic work.
Spent a lot of money doing that. They have made some really nice improvements to what used to be FedEx and for the fan experience there. So kudos to them just with everything they've done. Even the stuff we talked about that affects on the field, when we talked about them flying directly from Cincinnati to Arizona rather than saving a bunch of money and having them come straight home. That's a costs a lot of money to do that. Those trips like that. So, but he's spending the money.
Yeah, the new practice field, that field that had been on there for 30 years.
Yeah,
it was so bad they couldn't use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They removed it. Yeah,
I bet you training camp's going to be lit next year with obviously just with the expectations, but with all the improvements that they continue to make there in Ashburn.
Absolutely, it's gonna be good. New stadium, not really happening. There's some drawings for the record. I know I mentioned that, and I love Gus Bus's comment here. At this point, the new RFK has to be called the Joseph Jackson Gibbs Stadium, right? Has to.
Yeah. How about Joseph Jackson Gibbs Stadium at RFK?
Whatever you call it, that is also going to be great. And as we get closer, there was just some company who did renditions of it, and there's some issues with that where there's no parking and stuff like this.
Right.
When it gets bigger traction, maybe we'll have our friends over there at front office sports help us out with some of the conversations that are going to happen there. But for now, that's going to end episode 210 for us here. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it so other people can join the conversation here as we stream live every Wednesday here on YouTube and Facebook. Of course, catch us live afterwards as well. And if you do that, make sure you leave us a rating and review if you're listening on your favorite audio platform. We're brought to you by Don't Sleep Energy and Bet Online. We're part of the Believe Network. And until next time.
Trev, you did the impossible. You made me very much dislike one of our own players.
Be a fan.